All that and more. Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, member of the Senate Banking and Foreign Relations Committee, and he's a former U.S. ambassador to Japan. Senator, great to have you with us. Why don't we start with China because of your experience in that part of the world? Secretary Blinken going there later this week. What do you think his goals are? What do you think they should be? And are they attainable in any sense?
Well, I think the clearest thing to me is the fact that China, it was reported in the media, had demanded that the FBI not release its report on the spy balloon. And as everybody on this show recalls, they violated our sovereignty by sending a spy balloon floating over the United States, hovering over places like Oak Ridge National Lab in my state. They did it for days. And the FBI reports out, China's demanded that it not be released. And the consequence would be no meeting with Secretary Blinken. I hate to see us kowtow to the Chinese Communist Party and accommodate this. It feels to me like this is a stretch for some type of photo op diplomacy. It's not serious when we're not speaking from a position of strength. If we look at what China has done, in fact, take a look back in the previous administration, the United States Trade Representative undertook a study to see the cost to America of the intellectual property theft, the forced technology transfer, the industrial espionage that China undertakes. Roughly $600 billion a year. That's the combined profits of the top 50 of the Fortune 500 combined. That's almost the size of the Defense Department's budget. China has been predatory in every respect, and we should be dealing with them from a position of strength, not again.
What does that look like then? What does that look like, that position of strength? We all agree that we would like to clamp down. Our colleague Eamon Javers has a documentary coming out next week on China and industrial espionage. It is a big topic, and it has been for decades. But so what does getting tough on that look like?
We've actually seen it. I served as the ambassador to Japan in the last administration. The proximity to China is obvious. That's why we have the largest component of U.S. military stationed anywhere in the world, in Japan. It's a very tough neighborhood. China is right there. They move through the South China Sea, the East China Sea. They harass. They create a lot of challenges. When we stand tough militarily, China takes notice of that. I saw that happen in the previous administration. I saw the Chinese back out of the Senkaku Islands and back out of the South China Sea. That aggressive behavior responds to power and strength. When you saw our United States Trade Representative go over and negotiate the Phase 1 trade deal with China, that was tough talk. That was tough action, and we saw China respond. We need to continue to maintain that type of pressure. And I hear the Biden administration talking in ways that I would agree with, but I'd like to see them follow up with more action.
Do you think it's safer for us to make sure that we send a high-level official there now versus pulling that trip? And I take your point. I mean, no one wants to feel like we're in a situation where we have to agree not to release a key report like the one that you mentioned. It also comes this week, as the Wall Street Journal is reporting, there could be an eavesdropping base 90 miles off the coast of Florida in Cuba. So the timing of that and the fact that we would still go ahead with this trip, why is this trip so important, do you think?
Kelly, you're absolutely right. These are deep, deep concerns, and I don't understand why, if diplomacy was your real aim, you would be doing this right now. Frankly, if you're trying to advocate America's interest, a strong American interest, I think you would take exactly the posture that you're suggesting. You'd halt this. You would demand that the Chinese stop this behavior. The proximity of Cuba to the United States, as we know, is roughly 100 miles. And, you know, China setting up a spy station there, just wholly unacceptable. Again, the spy balloon, release the report. Demonstrate to the world that we're not going to kowtow to the Chinese Communist Party. That hasn't happened. So I'd like to see a little bit of a shift in our posture there.
Let's transition a little bit to the appropriations issue, which we were talking just before you came on, and we talked with our previous guest. There's action in the House. They're going to send you a bill that may cut more deeply than the original spending deal in the debt ceiling would cut certain areas. What happens when it comes to the Senate?
We're working through that process right now, Tyler. I've met with my counterpart on the committee that has to do with financial services and general government. I'm the ranking member on that subcommittee. And I just met with our ranking member, Susan Collins, on the overall appropriations committee. We're working through the process right now. Our goal has been to go back to what is known as regular order, where we actually work through each normal committee process. We have the opportunity to amend, to debate, and create input. What I don't want to see is a train wreck like we've seen in the past, where everything gets pushed off till the end. You wind up in the waning days of December passing an omnibus bill, as it's called, with everything piled together in a 4,000-page bill. Everything that we can do to avoid that, I think we're going to undertake that.
Very quickly, you had a long career in private equity in business, and you're new to the Senate. What has surprised you the most?
Well, I've been pleased in one regard with the caliber of my colleagues, both Democrat and Republican. A very, I think, intelligent group of people who I think, for the most part, are trying to do the very best they can. The process itself, though, and the challenges of navigating Washington are quite different from anything I've ever experienced in business.
Yeah.
And the impact of media, not only traditional media like we're discussing here today, but also the digital media environment, very different. And I think it puts a great deal of pressure, and frankly, it introduces a lot of acrimony into the system that I wish weren't there.
All right, Senator, thank you so much for being with us.
Very good to be with you.
Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee.